This is a Hot Pie Original.
Welcome to Paranormally, a place where we investigate and discover paranormal activity that happens normally, quietly filed in between the pages of our daily lives. Join us as we learn through experiences in history of paranormal investigators, clairvoyants, and mediums who try to solve my paranormal mysteries and maybe some of yours as well. Have you had that feeling you are being watched but no one's there? A cool wisp of air that seems to go right through you and leaves chills down your back? Maybe it's more than coincidence, more than your mind playing tricks. Maybe your life is also part of a paranormally world. My name is Aaron Dail, and over 6 years ago, my wife and I moved with our 5 kids into a house 5 miles outside of town on an old state highway. That stretch of old Route 2 has plenty of its own legends through the years, being dubbed Dead Man's Alley a century ago for a series of mysterious accidents. The 3.5 acres the house sits on has one of the sharpest train curves in the world wrapped around half of it, a spectacle that brings people from states away to see the legendary curve that has also been the host of several train crashes through the early 1900s. The house itself is surrounded by rumors and legends through its 150-plus years in existence that tie it to the Underground Railroad, the KKK, and years as an old tavern-style motel after the railroad tracks went in during the Civil War era. Since moving into the house, we have been witness to several unbelievable paranormal things that we are now trying to find answers for. And that brings us to the Paranormally podcast with special guests, paranormal co-hosts, and plenty of truth that is hard to believe. I'm speaking today with a couple of experts in the paranormal and some gentlemen with a lot more knowledge on this than I have. Could you please introduce yourselves, guys?
All right, I'm Steve Bartel. I'm a member of RAPS, which is Rock River Area Paranormal Society, and I'm also half of the duo of Bartel and Henson Paranormal, formerly known as Haunted Conover Square.
And my name is Josiah Henson. I'm the founder of Rock River Area Paranormal Society, and I'm also the other half of Bartel and Henson, like Steve mentioned. And the difference between the two, Rock River Area Paranormal Society is a group comprised of roughly 10 to 12 individuals that we go around to haunted locations, both on request, and then sometimes we request to go to these locations. And then Bartel and Henson, Steve and I have a tour company where we actually run haunted tours out of locations such as Conover Square, which is an old piano factory in Oregon, Illinois that was very well known to be haunted. We also have been touring the haunted Scottish Rite building in Freeport, and we've had a lot of interest in that. So that's where we're kind of differentiating between the two groups.
A quick side note now, you talked about the Scottish Rite building. Have you ever seen the Scottish Rite Cathedral in Moline just off the 74 bridge?
I have not, but I did hear about that place. I heard it's a wonderful place.
It's huge. It's all made of stone. It's crazy inside there, too.
Sure. And this place in Freeport sounds very similar. It's just massive stone building. Takes up about a whole city block. And sometimes we will go from Freeport to Moline. I just have not been on one of those degrees yet. I'm a member of the Scottish Rite as well. So sometimes during the Freemason degrees, we will go to other places. I just happen to not be on one yet.
Okay, well, maybe those are like a good location for stuff like this. But the place I want to talk to you guys about today, of course, is my own house. You know, I was talking to my wife about doing this podcast and with you guys and who you were, and that I was telling them some of the stories. And she's like, well, did you tell them about the screw falling out of thin air? I was like, I forgot all about it. I mean, when you've had so many weird episodes, it's hard to keep track of everything. And now I sent you guys some information about kind of what's been going on or what's gone on in the 6 years that we've lived there. And as I was in that process, I realized, I should really track down and ask more important questions to some of these folks who lived there in the past that are people that I can interact with and ask them similar questions. And certainly I'll pass that information on to you guys as I get it. But based on some of the things that I sent you, is this house haunted? Do I just have ghosts? What do you make of some of these things?
Well, before we get started, Aaron, I want to point out that in the paranormal field, there really are no experts. You have people that have done it longer than other people and people that might be new to it, but no one is technically an expert because there are no definite answers. So we can give you opinions based on what we've experienced and what we've learned and what we've picked up from other investigators and things like that, but I would by no means call us experts.
Okay, well, to me, you guys run a paranormal society. You've obviously spent a lot of years, not just a little bit of time, but years involved learning, seeing things, hearing things, talking to people about this. So in my opinion, I would call you experts, in my opinion. I appreciate the disclaimer, but I know you know stuff, so you better fess up here and give us some information. So just feel free, like what of the stories that I gave you kind of stuck out, that kind of thing.
To me, Aaron, the one that really, really stuck out, this is Josiah, by the way, the one that really stuck out to me was the water.
The water in the bed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have thought a lot about that, tried to come up with any plausible explanation.
So what happened was my wife and I woke up between 2 and 3 in the morning in our bed. Our 2 wiener dogs sleep with us. They're each about 15, 20 pounds little, but they sleep down at the foot of the bed. You know, if anybody comes in, they'll growl, move, bark, something. Anyway, we woke up, and underneath the covers, underneath our comforter and top sheet, our bed was wet with cold water between my wife and I, and then on the outside of each of us. Water enough. The sheets were saturated enough that the mattress was a little wet to where we pulled the sheets, put other sheets down, but still had to put towels down over the mattress part so it wouldn't soak through. And dogs didn't bark. German Shepherd in the living room didn't bark. You know, the kids were all sleeping. There was nobody there. How the hell something like this happens, I have no idea. You know, we don't have bladder control problems or anything like that. For us to both just simultaneously wake up, we were very shaken up for a while after that. But, you know, with time, you just kind of forget or just try to ignore it or try not to think about it and not get too caught up in it. You know, I feel like we're the right people to live in this house because we have 5 kids. We don't have time to worry too much about it, if you will. I am very fascinated to get some answers and learn more about my house itself, find out exactly when it was put up and all of those kinds of things. But when something like this happens, when you wake up in your bed and it's wet and it's not from you having an accident or something, and you know it's actually under the covers, but not the covers aren't wet, like it's freaky. Just talking about it, I still, you know, the hairs stand up a little bit on my arms, stuff like that. It's like I have no explanation for how something like that would even go on or how common something like that happening to people would be.
Sure. And once we talked about it, I did a little bit of research. I did tell you that there was a case, and I kind of looked back into that case, and I discovered that it was in the 1980s out in Pennsylvania where this gentleman was kind of in trouble with the law, in and out. And apparently he was on a work release program where they allowed him to go to a trusted family member's house for a weekend, and then he would go back to jail during the week. And it happened to be that his grandfather had passed away that weekend. They had his service, and the grandfather was apparently a really rough guy, a guy that was not very nice, kind of mean to the whole family. And the grandfather had passed away, and this guy was staying with one of his friends. They said with the work release, he could stay with a friend or family. So he was staying with his friend, and he was upstairs, and he said that he saw the image of his grandfather wearing a crown in the window, and it absolutely terrified him. And he said he went downstairs and sat with the family that was harboring him for a little while, and he had some scratches appear on his arm. And it all kind of ties in. I'll sort of tell you how it ties in. And as that happened, he went into kind of like a trance-like state, and the family that he was staying with began to see water materialize out of the one portion of the ceiling where there was no plumbing whatsoever. It was directly below a couple of bedrooms, so there wouldn't have been plumbing in that area. And they began to see the water not only drip down, but it was making 90-degree angles. And they called the police, and the police showed up, and the officers both witnessed this event. So they ended up taking this gentleman back to jail, and a couple of the wardens dared this guy to make the water appear again. And he said that he could, so he began to go in, once again, a trance-like state, and water began to appear on the ceiling, and they said that he could literally send the water rooms away. He sent the water into the warden's office, and it splashed against the warden out of the clear blue, and the warden was so terrified by this that he contacted a priest, I believe it was a Catholic priest, to come down and see if he could explain what was going on. And the Catholic priest was inside the cell trying to recite some of the Lord's prayers and things like that, and the water became so much that it was pouring out of the ceiling, but it would never touch the Bible. There were many witnesses that said that it was like raining in the cell, but the Bible was completely dry, whereas everything else was drenched.
You're weirding me out here, Josiah. That's why it makes my stuff seem like peas and carrots a little bit, man. That's wild for somebody to be able to actually do that. Now, did they get any video of this or anything like that? I'm sure there's a police report.
This was in the 80s, so they didn't have any video of it, and apparently after that incident in the jail cell, the priest said that he exorcised whatever was in him, and he felt like it was not demonic. He felt like it was his grandfather, the soul of his grandfather taking over. So not necessarily demonic, but an evil soul that had somehow taken over the grandson. And then when the grandfather exorcised it, it never happened again. But once again, it was witnessed by many people, but just not on video. You know, back then, none of us had camcorders in our pockets, you know, like we do now.
Right, yeah, everybody's walking around with a video camera and a camera. So do you guys have much experience with that kind of stuff, exorcism kind of stuff?
We, as a team, have not experienced any exorcisms, but we are pretty well versed in it. It's a very complicated process, so we don't practice it ourselves, but we can give you some idea of what would be involved in an exorcism.
Well, I think that's maybe a lot of steps down the road. I'm still just trying to learn stuff. That's like a weird word to me to start saying exorcism stuff. But do you think that it's that kind of a situation with the water in the bed where somebody's putting it there, or how they're putting it there? Or, I mean, this guy was alive and doing this, the story that you're telling, or doing it through his dead grandfather or something. Do you think there's a spirit or now what do you guys call ghosts or spirits, or what do you refer to them as?
I normally refer to them as ghosts, but anybody can say ghost, spirit, apparition. There's multiple different definitions of them.
I didn't know if there was like an official word, if I sounded like a dumbass, if I was like ghosts, you know, or whatever.
Technically, like one of them means that they're stuck in whatever the universe they're in, and that might be a ghost. I think spirits can travel freely between that realm and our realm and go back and forth. I think that's the definition, but I know that they all mean the same thing technically.
And like Steve said, there's going to be a multitude of different people who have written books upon it. There's thousands of books, and everybody's got their own variation, whereas this isn't a dead science, no pun intended, but it's not 100% science where there are solid definitions. People will use them interchangeably for sure.
All right. So, you know, and like I said, I'm really just I'm very ignorant to all of this. You know, guys like you be like, man, why couldn't I have bought that house? You know, it'd be right in your wheelhouse to me. And I'm like, this is kind of a pain. Like, what the hell's going on here? You know, based on some of the history that I gave you, and again, I haven't pinned down when the house was built exactly. There's always been rumors that it was part of the Underground Railroad. If it was completed in 1856, if the tracks were completed in 1856, the house went up as a hotel, tavern kind of thing, not long after the tracks went in. There's rumor that I've been told by some of the older people that that's what they were told, you know, that kind of thing. But of course, the KKK meetings there in the early 20th century has been documented in a couple of different books that we have on local history. So I feel like that's probably something that's, you know, true. And I know there's been a number of train crashes there. And I don't know all the details on the Dead Man's Alley kind of thing on that road, but I know there's a lot of different stories. Would you say, so is there anything to that? I mean, when you have a lot of that kind of stuff going on, like weird energy, negative energy, whatever it is that kind of like do I live in like a vortex or something?
Well, it could be such a thing as the activity that you talked about, stuff that's happened on the land has left an imprint of some kind. Anything that just happens kind of like randomly, sometimes can be like a residual haunting, they call it, you know, an imprint that was left on the area by activity that happened there, whether emotionally or if someone was killed. So that's a very good possibility. You know, there's a lot of other things that could be causing it too. If you have a specific piece of furniture or antique or things like that, you could have an entity attached to that one particular thing itself. And sometimes, people are haunted as well. So one of these things could be, you know, attached to someone in your family. I mean, like I said, it's an inexact science, but there's many different possibilities for what could be causing the activity that's going on there.
I was just going to say, I just learned from watching Frozen 2 with my daughter that water has memory. So, I mean, and that would make sense with the water thing, too, if it's somebody from the past or whatever. But, Josiah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to touch on what Steve said. I would say that you've probably got a combination of several of those things that Steve just talked about. Maybe even an intelligent haunting, possibly even, like Steve had mentioned, a residual haunting where it's like a record that just plays over and over again, and it's certain triggers that might cause that. It may be an environmental trigger. It may be a calendar trigger, such as like a certain date would just trigger an event to happen and replay. And I think there's just a multitude of things going on. Judging by what you've shown me, I don't think we can just narrow this down to one type of haunting.
Right.
So what, I got like a ghost hangout going on at my house? Like this guy's from over here, this guy's from over there. That's pretty wild.
It's kind of a square. We've had psychics come in through here, a lot of psychic mediums, and a lot of them say that, this place is almost like a beacon, that sometimes, there's things that have been here for a while, there's things that have migrated here, there's things that have left and everything. So you never know, you might have a way station there for ghosts that are passing through even,
Well, and because I have no idea, we're talking about, okay, a whole bunch of train crashes have taken place there. You got all, the road was known as Dead Man's Alley. And then there's the possibility of any kind of underground railroad situation would obviously be a big, heaven knows what happened if 4 different towns, KKK chapters, would meet right there because of the central location. You've read the story, so I'm putting my daughter's crib together, and you got all the pieces in the little plastic, pouches that they come in. They're all sealed up, blah, blah, blah. I get to the point where I got to put these 4 screws in. I open the package. I put, I take one, put it in, take another one, put it in, take another one, put it in, and then the 4th one's gone. And there's nobody else in the room except me and my wife. Kids are upstairs. They're not around messing with anything. Wiener dogs are laying on the couch. And I can't find the screw. It's gone. I mean, it is gone. We're looking. I'm getting pissed. You know what I mean? Just getting pissed off. Like, God, I'm just trying to get this crib together. Blah, blah, blah. And then the screw literally drops out of thin air, hits me on the shoulder, and then falls to the floor. And my wife watched that happen. And the look on her face when that happened, she was speechless, just shocked. And then, of course, the situation with the truck where I'm trying to jumpstart a car that's backed into my garage. I pull my truck up, I put it in park, I pop the hood, I hook up the cables. I'm standing there between the car and the truck waiting for the car to charge. I hear rocks like someone's pulling in my driveway. I look up and my truck had put itself into drive and was idling towards me. So I jumped out of the way, ran around, put it back in park, shut it off, and then caught my breath. Because that was the first big one that I had, was that truck thing. That happened before the crib. I didn't know if it was me that was getting messed with directly, or if this was something that was, more sight indicative. Like it's the place, not me.
And that's a great question, Aaron. And as you were kind of telling that story, I was thinking several different things. So you highlighted a lot of the major things that have happened there, such as train crashes and the KKK, the Dead Man's Cur, all that type of thing. But also we have to bear in mind that house throughout those years also had families in that, and they would have had their own dramas, they would have had their own happinesses, and all that type of stuff could have potentially imprinted upon the house. Let's say that there was a mischievous little boy that maybe died of a fever or something. He might be around, and he might be the one that's screwing with you. Also, like you said, it may be you, and I'm not saying this is the case, and I'm not saying this is what I'm leaning toward, but there is a potential that it could be you. Let me ask you, throughout your lifetime, have you experienced other things growing up? Did you experience anything besides this location?
The other thing I've had is the house I lived in before that one. The shower turned itself on twice by itself in the middle of the night. But that's the only other things, which that same thing has obviously happened at the house we live in now several times. Off and on every 3-4 months, whatever. But then since the water thing happened in the bed, we have not had any of that.
And see, to me, that almost makes me wonder if that is site-specific.
Mm-hmm.
Or, once again, Aaron, it could be a combination. Maybe the thing that was turning the shower on followed you and came out there, and then now it's mixed in with the rest of what's going on out there.
I mean, that's why I'm talking to you guys. You're, like I said, you got a lot more experience. Now, let me ask you, so you guys go out, you will come out to sites. Is there a time, maybe sometime we could get you out to my house and maybe have a look around and you could see for yourself?
Oh, we'd absolutely love that. Yeah. Yep.
And we would come out as under the Rock River Area Paranormal Society, because we have a team of about 10 of us, and normally in a home investigation we might lighten that up, maybe bring 8 of us together and all come out with all of our equipment, and then we'll try to get a baseline idea of what's going on. And generally how those happen, Aaron, we'll come out, break up into maybe groups of 3 or 4, and then one group might take hotspot A, Another group might take hotspot B, and we'll sit there and try to get a baseline for what's going on our equipment, and also through some of our own personal feelings. Like we have a girl on our team that's considered a sensitive, so she might be able to give us some insight into what's going on into your house based upon her feelings, whereas we will use our equipment to try to register anything. And the equipment is a massive variety. I probably would take up a whole podcast just explaining everything that we've got.
So you got like all the Ghostbusters stuff.
Yes, anything.
And we also have a security system with our DVR where we can set up to 8 cameras at different locations throughout the house. So no matter where we are, or if someone's monitoring the screen, they can see what's going on in 8 different locations. So if your shower should happen to turn on, we would be able to see, does the knob move? What's going on with it? I mean, if a prankster that's been sneaking in and messing with you, like of the humankind does it, boom, it's right there caught on tape.
I'm confident my German Shepherd would eat anyone. We have a hard enough time getting her to not eat the cats. So, and she only comes in at night for that. She's in there for protection basically at night. I mean, they'll even like growl and bark at the kids sometimes, especially if it's at night and they get startled. So I don't even know who it would be if that were the case. But we also have alarms on our doors and windows where it goes beep, beep, beep every time somebody comes in or out a door or window, which drives you crazy sometimes. But, at least then we know if somebody's coming in the house. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that in my heart of hearts, and I know anybody with a ghost story or whatever could be full of BS, and that's fine. And some folks probably think that of me, and that's fine too. I'm not into this stuff. You guys are. You know what I mean? I'm just the guy that happened to land in a spot that seems to have a lot of this going on. So, that's not my intention whatsoever. I just want to find out more and see. I think, anyway. Now, you're starting to tell me, like, well, maybe there's this little boy who died of a fever. Like, maybe I don't want to know what this is at my house. You know what I mean? Do you think in most cases where you guys have done this, are people glad that you did?
Yeah, because we don't exactly tell them necessarily who is there. We can just present the evidence of the things that happened and more or less confirm whether or not we think the place is truly haunted. But obviously we can't say it's haunted by a ghost named Joe who died on this date and this is why he's messing with it.
Right. I got you. So you guys got like the, like the bzzz, like the things that are like moving around and doing like the lights and I don't know, I'm just thinking of like stuff they have on Ghostbusters. I mean, is it kind of like that, some of the equipment stuff?
Yeah, similar to that. Most of the devices. Do you ever watch any of the paranormal shows, Aaron? Have you ever caught one of those?
You know what? Even though we're doing this podcast, I have not.
Okay.
So I don't. I got 5 kids. I don't have a lot of time. I'm relying on the folks that I'm talking to kind of move me forward here step by step and try to get this thing figured out.
Sure. Well, yeah, but we do have the stuff that looks like the Ghostbusters equipment and a lot more. Lots of flashing lights, lots of noises.
You got like the ambulance car?
No, we don't.
That was so cool. You guys need to get one of those, like an old firehouse, the whole thing. But no, so, okay, real quick, we got to get wrapped up here for today, but give me real quick a 5-minute story, if you have it or whatever, of some of these houses that you've investigated. Like, what's some of the weirdest stuff you guys have seen in homes or wherever, hotels, old piano factories, whatever it is?
This is Josiah again. I would start off with a story that happened here in Conover Square. So Conover Square is kind of like our home base. So this is where we've investigated many, many times. Steve and I together have been on probably well over 100 investigations in this building. Just to set you up and let you know what it is, it's about a 200,000 square foot piano factory that was built in the 1800s. It's now converted into mall, like a mall type building. And there's been a lot of reported activity of hauntings here. And one time, Steve and I and a member of our RAPS team, Colleen, and her husband Mike were upstairs in the attic. And the attic, just to kind of give you an idea of what the setting is like, it's basically like wide open. If you can imagine a building 200,000 square foot, that kind of footprint, just wide open. And there's massive rafters, and there's all kinds of things up there. Anything from old antiques to clawfoot tubs to old doors, you name it, it's up there. It's a very interesting place. And we had gotten done doing a tour, a public tour here, and the public had left, and we decided to hang around for a little bit and go up to the attic. So while we were up in the attic, it was, like I said, Steve, Colleen, and her husband and I, and we were all up in the attic just doing a paranormal session. So what we're doing is sitting there with recording devices and some of our other devices trying to catch anything paranormal that we could equate to as evidence. And both Steve and the husband, Mike, witnessed what they believed to be eyes down toward the lower part of the ground, and this is all in the dark, and your eyes start to begin to, you start to get used to the darkness, and your eyes start to, lighten up.
You can start to see things, yeah?
Exactly, and they saw some eyes, and as soon as that starts happening, this overwhelming feeling of dread came over me, and I have never once experienced that in this building. This building feels more like a welcoming environment, and all of us together just wanted to get out of that environment very quickly. And to me, that was pretty disturbing, especially knowing the building as well as we do. And I'll let Steve kind of talk about his story and what he thinks would be a good one to talk about. But
in my experience, that happened. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff happen at a lot of different places, but a lot of what happens is what I call teaser stuff. It might be just a little noise that you're uncertain of what exactly made it, or just some unexplainable movement or things like that. But the one big thing that happened for me is we were on Halloween. This was about 5 years ago. We had just got done giving a tour. I was in the same area of the attic that Josiah was just referencing, and we had done an EVP session. Made a lot of recordings that we were going to go back and listen to later and see if we picked up any voices that we didn't hear at the time. And we had all turned our lights on. We were kind of milling around, and we heard a metallic clink on the ground, over on the other side of the room. It sounded as if someone had dropped a nail or something like that. And so we made our way over there, and we're looking around, and we found little pieces of little staples on the ground, part of a length of staples. We threw it down, and that was the noise we heard. So as we were taking pictures and stuff, at the far back end of the room, we heard the same noise, like something was thrown down that way. And there was a girl that was standing down in that area, and she was like, "I'm out of here." She came walking up towards the rest of the group, and something was thrown from the back of the room, which was empty, where she was just coming from, thrown from back there, right past us, a rock or a piece of plaster. She felt it whiz past, and it landed by the whole group there and everything with a crack on the ground. So little poltergeist activity was going on in the same area there.
Wow. So let me ask you something now, because I think sounds are probably the most normal thing. Was there a ratio for, you hear sounds compared to this? Because all I've ever had is the physical, like they're physically doing something to mess with me or, whatever they're doing. Is the sound thing more of a common thing, or what's more prevalent?
I would say it depends on what location it is, Aaron. It sounds like your location has a lot of activity, and to me, it sounds like whatever it is there might be strong. If they're actually producing physical matter, such as water, or let's say you're actually manipulating your shift column, and they can shift your column into drive and make your vehicle creep toward you, that tells me that whatever is there knows how to harness energy. Whereas I think more often we will catch sounds and noises and
footsteps and stuff.
Exactly.
That maybe the normal ear doesn't always catch.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that it's fairly rare that we actually witness an apparition or actually witness maybe, let's say, a door just completely slam on its own. Although those things have happened, and recently, I would say that's a little bit more rare.
So you've seen ghosts. See, now that's something else. We've never seen anything. You know what I mean? Never a reflection, never a nothing, never a form or anything. Never seen anything.
Here's the thing: I could say that we probably have seen ghosts, but it's always out of the corner of your eye or when you're not looking directly at it. I have yet to see a full-bodied apparition straight in front of me. Catching a shooting star or something. It's kind of, you're always going to catch it out of the corner of your eye. By the time you look, the movement stops or is dissipated, and we haven't caught that one big holy grail thing on camera yet.
You just I just got goosebumps, Steve, when you were talking about the corner of the eye thing, because when I go out and do chores and stuff in the morning, I get that almost every day.
Yes,
and to a point where I'm just kind of numb to it, but I always feel like I'm seeing something out of the corner of my eye, and I'm just thinking I'm just whatever, obviously something's there. I know that for sure. Personally, I know something's there, so that would make sense. But now I'm going to be real creeped out walking out to do chores in the morning. I'm telling you what.
Yeah. Well, it's only a matter of time before that movement happens, right in your field of vision,
Yeah, man. Well, guys, I just want to thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to doing this again next week or whenever you guys might have some more time. And I really would love to get something scheduled to have you come out to the house sometime when my kids aren't home.
Sure. Yes. Thank you very much for having us, Aaron. We really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Again, this is Josiah and Steve. Could you guys give your info one more time real quick for everybody?
Yep. This is Josiah Henson, the founder of Rock River Area Paranormal Society, and I also am the Henson in Bartell and Henson Paranormal. You can find both of those on Facebook.
And I'm Steve Bartell. I'm a member of Rock River Area Paranormal Society and the other half of Bartell and Henson, and that was it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks so much for your time today, and I can't wait for another installment.
Can't wait to talk to you again, too, Aaron. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening. You can find more episodes and all other Hot Pie Media originals baked fresh daily at our home on the web at hotpiemedia.com, the Hot Pie Media YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts.